to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by BetDSI.eu. If you're going to bet on the basketball game tonight, make sure you go to BetDSI.eu, put in the promo code TGT, or go through the Grueling Truth banner, or the GruelingTruth.com banner at the top of the page for BetDSI, and they will give you a 100% cashback bonus up to your first $1,000. I am your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in 1981 national champion, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
I'm wore out. I'm tired.
That's because you're old.
Oh, yeah, I know. But did you listen to the show we did with Landon Turner last night?
No, I don't have 2 hours to waste. I already wasted it. But it was a great show. And if you want to hear the funniest thing ever, go to about an hour and 7 minutes in. I know our buddy Lucas loves an hour and 7 minutes in for the tampon story.
1 hour, 7 minutes, and whatever seconds into it. And I went back and listened to it, and I talk too much.
Yeah, we've been telling you that forever, but you won't listen to us, but you'll listen to Landon. And Landon, I can see why you like him so much. Landon's a great guy, and the thing that's impressive about Landon is most people don't overcome what happened to him the way he did. And if you don't know, if you're not an IU fan or you're one of these young guys, Landon Turner was a big part of the 1981 national championship team that Risley was on, Isaiah Thomas, Randy Woodman that won a national championship. And then a few months later, he got in a car wreck and ended up paralyzed from the chest down. And within 2 or 3 years of that happening, he's graduated from IU. Now he goes around talking to groups as a motivational speaker. He does a lot of great philanthropy, helping people raise money for worthy causes. And I would highly suggest going to thegruelingtruth.com and listening to that interview, because Landon Turner is what sports should be about. Guys like Landon Turner, hurt or not hurt, guys that do the right thing. And he went through hell with Bobby Knight, but I think in the end, going through the hell with Bobby Knight probably made him stronger, which I would say this, Steve. Playing for Bobby Knight, you either get stronger or you get immeasurably weaker. There's no in between.
It's so true. And I have known Landon, oh my God, longer than I know my wife. I've known Landon longer than I know my wife. Yeah, I have. And to hear his stories last night, and it really, people, if you listen to one thing, this is kind of like a book waiting to be written. It's Landon's story. It's not our story. It's not my story. It's Landon's story. And it was just like, it was the fastest 2 hours of my life.
Well, and the thing is this, we joke all the time, Steve, about how Isaiah Thomas was the reason that team won. But if you look at that team, Isaiah played well all year, but when Landon started to play well, you guys were untouchable.
Agreed. Yeah. No. Yeah. Can't disagree with you there at all. Landon was the reason we won the national championship in 1981, single-handedly, bar none.
All right.
And like you said, because Isaiah was Isaiah. We knew what we were going to get with Isaiah. We knew what we were going to get with Whitman. We knew what we were going to get with Kitchell. We didn't know what we were going to get with me.
Landon was the wild card, so to speak.
Landon was the wild card. Ray Tolbert, we knew what we'd get with Ray. But Landon was the wild card, and that's a great dialogue you got to go listen to.
All right,
so
real quick, let's talk about something else that is great about sports.
Hockey?
What's great about sports is, it's hockey a little bit. But overall, I mean, we had a team last night, the St. Louis Blues, who the first time in, 50-year history, won a Stanley Cup championships. I mean, that was 50 seasons without a Stanley Cup. They'd gotten close their first few years by getting into Stanley Cup, getting beat, never really got back there again. And they survived the Western Conference Final. They also survived the Western Conference semifinal against the Dallas Stars that I think, if I remember right, went 7 games. They made a shocking but they made an impressive 180-degree turn second half of the season. This is a team in January. The odds were like 250 to 1 in Vegas for them to win the Stanley Cup. And they come in, they play a fairly heavily favored Bruins team. They're up 3-2. They get a chance to clinch the Stanley Cup at home and just get annihilated. Jordan Bennington, who is the guy that stepped in January and basically turned this around at goalie, got basically taken apart. And then he comes back in Game 7 as a rookie in Boston at, what do they call it now, the TD Garden or something, and he just shuts them down in the biggest game you could possibly play as a hockey player. And this is a team that fired their coach in November after they started off bad. They were dead last in January. Game 7 was only Jordan Bennington's 30th start ever. And when you look at this, the amazing things that this team did, Game 7, they won it on the road. Road teams were 4-12. We talked about this yesterday. 4-12 going into Stanley Cup Finals Game 7. It had been 13 years since a team won the Stanley Cup that didn't make the playoffs the previous year. So everything was stacked against this team. Nobody gave them any chance to win this. And this is the great thing about sports. We talked about it when Andy Ruiz upset Anthony Joshua. Tiger Woods wins that golf thingamajiggy that he won. It's just, when you get
It's
people,
called the Masters. It's
whatever,
called the Masters.
Whatever. I don't know. They're all the same to me. I'm not kidding either. I didn't remember if it was the Masters or the U.S. Open or what. But, and I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I was just trying to be funny. But when we got to it, that's what makes sports special. The fact that you can have moments like this for underdogs that seemingly have no chance to win. And when you watch this team and the joy that they had when they won this game, it tells me two things, Risley. That's what makes sports special. And number two, home ice or home court advantage really doesn't matter that much.
Doesn't mean it matter, yeah.
I mean, we just watched the Stanley Cup Finals where the home team was 2-5. We've watched an NBA Finals where the home team is what, 2-3? At best, 2-3, maybe 1-4. Yeah, because Golden State hadn't won a game at home. Yeah, Golden State and Toronto now. The home team's 1-4. So
and they went to Toronto and won a game that they should have lost. They won by 1 point.
Well, yeah, and they won a game 2 after being taken apart in game 1. So I think this, and I'll still stick by this. I think in the 80s and 90s, I think that home court, home ice, home field advantage was a much bigger deal because I think, number one, teams' fans were more into it than they are now. And that's not to say that the Raptors don't have a great crowd, because they do. But I also think this, with the athletes you have now, I think athletes, I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes guys that play today have a tendency, when they think things are going their way, to relax. Where guys back in the day, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, aren't relaxing until your ass is dead.
Agreed.
And I think here, what we watched was, I think if you would have had the middle of game 5.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
They went into Boston. And won. This wasn't like they're going to Indianapolis or Sacramento or San Diego. They went into Boston. Is maybe the greatest sports town in the world.
Well, they have been over the last 2 decades. They have, because now what you've got is Boston, the New England area, has got a drought. They haven't won a championship since early February now, because they've won everything recently. I mean, the Red Sox they won the World Series last year. The Celtics were the big failure because they only made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals. The Patriots win the Super Bowl, go there almost every year, and now the Bruins are in the Stanley Cup Finals. So those people in New England got it rough.
But this is interesting. What you just said was about how maybe it's not relevant anymore to be in a home city. It doesn't. I think players have figured that out, and that's what you're trying to say, right?
Well,
players
I'm trying to say this. I think,
around that.
And I'm not counting the Toronto
crowd.
This is
a good conversation.
Because I think the Toronto crowd is a great crowd. But I think now there's a lot of other crowds on the road that aren't, because you got a lot of people. I mean, how many people have we seen that were posted about LeBron James and how much they love the Cleveland Cavaliers? As soon as he left, they're freaking Laker fans. So they're really fans of players. And being a fan of a player, you don't have the tendency to be so much in love with the overall thing here. So maybe the crowd's not as loud. I'll compare it to this. 1988, the Cincinnati Bengals went undefeated at home, won the AFC Championship. I went to all those games with my dad, and it got so loud in that place. You couldn't talk to each other unless you just screamed into each other's ear. Now, in 2013, my kids and I had season tickets, and they went undefeated all season, but the crowd was never like it used to be. And I remember I was excited. They're playing the Chargers, a home playoff game. Hadn't won a playoff game in forever. Hadn't had a home playoff game since 1990 or January of 91. And I remember telling my kids, I mean, this is going to be loud because I think it's going to be like it was when I was 18, 19 years old going to the jungle. And we get there. And the Chargers first play, they gain 7 yards. Everybody sits down. My son looks at me and says, we're probably screwed, right, Dad, since we're the Bengals? But the thing is this, the crowd never got into the game, not the way it was in 1988. And when I look at it, Indiana Pacers, if you remember the Pacers with Reggie Miller in the 90s, Marcus Square Arena, and
Marcus Square Arena.
What was it called? Conseco Fieldhouse after that. Those places were raucous. They were loud. But now, I mean, they've got good crowds, but not like it was. And I think that even though the Raptors are like that, the fact that other places aren't like that, you go to Philadelphia, to Spectrum in the late 70s, early 80s, everybody was up and screaming the whole time. You remember the Portland Trail Blazers back in 77. That entire city went
Glass
nuts.
Palace. Glass Palace.
When's the last time we've seen a team connect with their city as tightly? Because when you look at it, and me growing up, you had like the Love You Blue Oilers. They connected with their city big time. The Orange Crush, the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos still sell out every game, but the crowds are not as passionate as what they once were. They're not as hard to beat there anymore. You had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1979. It seemed like every year. The Minnesota Twins in 87 and 91. Those teams actually connected with their communities. I think the problem is teams tried to connect with their communities back then. You know, in Cincinnati in 1988, I remember going to a Pacers-Bulls preseason game at Riverfront Coliseum. And there's like 5 or 6 Bengals there. Ickey Woods is sitting like 4 rows behind me. He's got worse seats than I have. And, you know, everybody, I don't think Ickey ever saw the game because this was his rookie year. This is where you had the Chevy commercials and everything, and he was huge. And people just surrounded him the whole game. He sat there the whole game signing autographs. We left 10 minutes after the game. Ickey Woods was still there signing autographs. Baseball games. I don't remember until you were 15 minutes from game time where the ushers would come down and get the kids away from getting autographs from the team. I mean, now you've got like a half hour where you can go down there, and if a player decides to come out and sign, they will. I mean, the Big Red Machine, I remember seeing after batting practice, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Dave Concepcion, all would walk up to the crowd. They would find every kid, sign as much as they could before Sparky Anderson came and told them, we got to go. And I think that you saw guys in the community more. Now with the NFL, you're in the community because it's in your contract that you have to be. And the thing is this, when you don't have as many players connecting in the community, you don't have as deep a connection from the community to the team. And the Big Red Machine in the mid-'70s, you could go to Kroger's and see George Foster or Johnny Bench. Now the problem is, maybe I can see a red if I go to Kroger's, but I don't know who they are.
All right. Okay. So you've taken this on a tangent because we were going to talk about St. Louis, and they
we are because this has a lot to do with it.
Well, here's my question. Here's my question for you. I got a ton of questions for you now, and this is going to be your show because I'm going to ask you questions because you are really getting this. If you were the St. Louis Blues today, and you're one of the players on the team, what are you doing with the Stanley Cup today? You're the first player who gets it. What are you doing with the Stanley Cup today?
Well, this is the thing. The thing that's great about hockey is hockey gets it. And that's why almost every hockey team sells out every game no matter what their record is. Because hockey players connect with fans. And hockey teams do that really well. And the NBA, I think, does it fairly well. The NFL, I think there's a disconnect. I think the NFL does it because they feel like they have to do it. The players do it because they feel like they have to do it. But I think hockey gets it. I think that's why Vegas, Nashville last year, the crowds were nuts. The crowds were nuts in Boston and St. Louis. I think in hockey, I think since they get it, I think the fans are passionate. But I also think this. In hockey and baseball, home field or home ice isn't as big a deal because if you have a Tuukka Rask or a Jordan Binnington that gets hot, it's just like back in the day. 1973, the Mets finished a game above 500, and they beat the Reds in a best-of-5 because they got Seaver and Kuzman. So I think hockey, the most important thing is what you got in goal. And I think in baseball, the most important thing is who you've got going on the mound. Because if you got Clayton Kershaw going out there, you're pretty comfortable even if you're on the road. I think where you see home field, and it should matter more, is football. And the thing about home field and football, I think we see that. And I think we see it a little bit in the NBA still. But football, I just think there's been a disconnect. And I think there's too many people. And this is the thing. This has made the popularity and the money of the NFL huge. And that is gambling and fantasy football. But the problem is, if you're playing fantasy football, hell, you might have a guy on your team that plays on the Cowboys and you're a Giants fan. Well, you still want him to do good because you want to win your game. And it puts a disconnect there in how much that game really matters to you that your team's playing.
Okay, wait, because I wrote this down. I had to write it down because you're eloquating so efficiently. You talked about Las Vegas last year in hockey. Is Las Vegas probably not the most transient city in the United States of America?
I don't know if it is anymore, but this is the thing. With the Vegas Knights, we'll find out how good their fan base is when they miss the playoffs a couple times.
But they sold out. They went nuts. They went rabid, and that's a town that you go visit. You don't live in Las Vegas.
Yeah, but remember this. Remember this. Hockey teams, it's easy to sell out all the time. You're in a 20,000-seat arena. And there's a lot more than 20,000 people in Vegas. And since you're transient, maybe you've got 10% of that crowd every game is people that maybe live in Philadelphia. And they're going to go to Vegas, so they figure, well, hell, I'll go to a Golden Knights game, too, because it looked cool last year when they were in the Stanley Cup Finals and everything they did pregame and everything. I think that your question is how dedicated are those fans when this team doesn't win for a few years?
Well, they're dedicated to the sport. I think they're dedicated to the sport, not necessarily.
Well, see, Vegas, I don't think they are.
Columbus does well. Charlotte does well. Tampa
but those are small communities.
These are not hockey.
Yeah, but see, Columbus is a small community that doesn't have professional sports outside of the Iowa State football team.
That's professional sports.
I know. That's what I said. They got like an NFL D-League team.
Yeah. No, they probably. Yeah. Oh, let's move on. We'll get the NCAA after us, and we don't want that either. So.
Yeah, the NCAA would take an entire show. I think this is great for hockey that the Blues won. Somebody else won.
Yeah, I agree.
I do think it would help hockey, and I know this will drive Sam nuts when he listens to it, but I think it would help hockey if there was a dominant team, because I think the New England Patriots, no matter how much people hate it, have helped the NFL, because the thing with the Patriots is you either completely love them or you want to see them lose, and what that leads to is everybody caring and everybody watching.
Okay, that's a great point. And I for the NFL, they're big enough to do that. And you want the Patriots, you want Tom Brady. He's your GOAT, and justifiably he's your GOAT. And you want people to try and beat them. But in hockey, do you know how big that Stanley Cup is? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I'm not telling you that you don't know. Every player's name that ever wore a jersey for the season is on that cup.
Yeah.
And so now, do you want it to go to the one city all the time? You want to go back to Boston, or do you want to give it to St. Louis, or you want St. Louis to earn it? And St. Louis earned it. They didn't. It wasn't given to them. They earned it. And I hadn't watched hockey in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I don't know how long. And I started watching hockey. I said, I'm really into this. These are good athletes. These are great athletes. These are guys that play hard every day of the week, and they're playing for something that, what are the two most important trophies in the world?
It's according to what sport you like. To me,
the
Super Bowl.
The Lombardi Trophy. All right.
Lombardi.
Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup. That's obviously, yeah.
No, not to me. I mean, the Stanley Cup is huge. I think this. The trophies with the most history behind them would be the Stanley Cup and the Grey Cup. I mean, the CFL, which kicks off tonight, is older than the NFL. And it's older by the NFL by a couple decades, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Stanley Cup started around the turn of the century.
This is
Grey
a
Cup.
show we're going to have in a week. We got to get Lucas on. This is a show. The Grey Cup is older than the NFL.
Yeah, easily.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. There's been professional football in Canada longer than there has been in this country.
Oh, Mike, we've got to do a show on that.
Why?
I did not know that.
Everybody.
I did not know that.
That's because you don't watch the
I did not know
CFL,
that.
Steve. You know what? Lucas might not have known that.
We
He
don't
lives
get
in
the
Canada.
CFL in California.
You do. It's called ESPN, Steve. Check it out sometime.
We don't know. We don't.
Yeah, you do.
I
have
literally,
ESPN.
I've tried to find. Anyway, that's
all you got to do is download the ESPN app, and every game in the
that costs
CFL
money. That costs
no,
money.
it doesn't. ESPN Plus costs money. The regular ESPN app doesn't cost anything.
Oh, I'm on ESPN app right now. I don't see ESPN Plus.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the ESPN
I'm seeing
app
it right
has
now.
it. Man, I hate to tell you this,
Oh.
Steve, but the ESPN Plus app, are you ready for how much it costs? Because it's $4 freaking a month.
Do you know what it costs to buy a gallon of gas in California?
How much?
More than $4.
Well, then that makes that really freaking cheap, Steve. And see, tomorrow I'm going to ask you questions about the Montreal Alouettes Edmonton Eskimos game today. Actually, I'm not, because I'm probably going to be watching the NBA Finals.
I'll look it up. I will look it up. No,
you can't look it up. You got to watch it. You can't talk about a game unless you watch it.
All right.
That's a rule.
I'm going to ESPN schedule right now. Top events. I don't even see Euro Quals, women's tennis, WWC. They don't even have CFL listed on here. Nation League, MLS, Gold Cup.
Do you know how to spell it?
Canadian football.
No, CFL.
Cricket. Cricket is higher. There's cricket that's higher than CFL.
No, there ain't.
Really?
Let me see.
Yes, there is, but that's okay.
No, there isn't.
So,
I see CFL right here. It's right below MMA. And if I click CFL, it takes me to the CFL site. I'm not kidding either.
No, I'm going CFL. Okay, here's CFL.
You see the three little dots. You click that, it'll take you there.
I've got them.
2019 season kicks off.
Nailers kickoff. Yeah, Lions football. Here we go. All right. So let's promote CFL. What is TSN?
TSN is the ESPN version in Canada.
Of Canada. Okay.
Yeah,
the
Lucas
Sports
said
Network.
you could just download the TSN app.
Is that who Lucas works for?
No, if
TSN?
Lucas worked for them, he wouldn't even talk to us. He'd be too good for us then. All right, let's go ahead and let's move on and let's talk about tonight's game.
Okay, let's finish up. Let's finish up. Great thing for hockey. Great thing for St. Louis. I was born in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which is about some odd miles west of St. Louis. So
what's that?
I was rooting for St. Louis, but I want to give you this due. I do want to give you this.
I picked them at the start of the Stanley Cup.
You
playoffs.
picked them, yeah, and that's where I wanted to go with that.
Actually, my pick was I want to be fair for everything here. I picked at the start either Dallas or St. Louis. I said whichever one came out of the Western Conference semifinal would win it all. But I did in Game 7 bet on St. Louis, and I made a little bit of jack there, and I made a little bit of jack last night, and I nailed 73% during the NHL playoffs.
So what makes you so smart?
I don't know. I think it was just born that way.
I get sick and tired of coming on the show going, oh, my God, I don't want to do a show today with Mike because he's going to be right and I'm going to be wrong.
Yeah, and remember, you're only one loss by the Warriors away from being wrong again, and I'll be right again.
You still think the Raptors are going to win this?
Yeah, you said yesterday you thought the Raptors were going to win it. Were you just saying it to be nice to Lucas? If you were, you could tell me. I won't tell him.
Who, to Lucas?
Yeah. Were you just being nice to Lucas?
Oh. Yeah, we just be nice to Lucas.
Okay, because I think
Lucas and I are feuding right now, so we're having it out.
Oh, you sissies!
That's fine.
I'm gonna. You know what? If we had a locker room, I would do you like Bobby Knight did Landon, but we're gonna leave it right there. I'd do you both that way. All right, tonight with their backs against the wall and a must-win NBA Finals, Game 6 in Golden State. What's going to happen tonight, Steve? Can the Warriors pull this out? I would say if they can knock down 18 to 23s again, they got a shot. And the chances of them knocking down 23s are actually not that bad.
All right, let me throw it back to you. Yes, I think they can. And you think that Steph Curry is one of the greatest players of all time?
I think he's the best
NBA.
player right now, and yes, he's one of the greatest players of all time. If you watch him and Klay Thompson take a 6-point lead and tie the game in about 15 seconds, that'll tell you why.
No, I just is there any doubt that you would bet against Golden State?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt that I'm betting against Golden State because of this, though.
Right.
They did lose Kevin Durant. The thing people don't understand is this. I think Iguodala has got issues injury-wise. Kevon Looney, nobody brought up the fact he came back and didn't come back in the game the other night. I think this is a team that is beaten up. I think they're worn out. I think tonight they will play a great first half, and I think they'll be up 10 points at the half. And then I think Toronto is going to slowly chip away, get on a run, get about a 10-point lead. Steph and Klay will get it close again. But I think tonight, the last game at the Oracle Arena in Golden State, I think the Toronto Raptors will become the NBA World Champions.
Okay, I'm doing a pregnant pause here for silence because I'm trying to absorb what you just said. And I'm trying to say, is he making sense or are you just trying to dispute?
I'm not trying to dispute anything. I'm making complete sense. This is the thing. Let me explain it. Let me explain it.
Okay.
This is a team that I think are like a wounded animal right now. They lost Kevin Durant. Everybody outside of them is saying, well, it's over with. They're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder to prove that it's not over. I think that they will run this out, have a big first quarter, and then I think as the game goes on, that emotion wears off. You know, everybody talks about how emotion is a great thing, but when you're playing a game, emotion a lot of times can bite you in the ass, especially when there's a lull in the game and that emotion goes away because you're only playing to prove things for so long. After a while, you're just playing the game. And I think that physically and mentally, with everything they've went through since the time Durant got hurt in Game 5 against the Rockets, and even, remember, this is a team that Game 2 at home lost like a 500-point lead against the Clippers. Then they lost. I mean, they were pushed to 6 games by the Clippers. I think this is a very resilient team, but I compare this team probably similar to like the 87 Celtics or the 89 Lakers, where they fought their ass off to get to this point, but at some point you just kind of run out of gas. And when your car runs out of gas, it doesn't matter how bad you want that car to run, you're not running anywhere.
Out of gas.
So I think they're going to run out of gas tonight. If they don't and they hold on, I still think Toronto's going to win this series. I just think right now, with the injuries that the injuries that the Warriors have suffered, I just think the Raptors have a better roster. I think the key is this: if Danny Green comes out in the first quarter and shoots well, I think the Raptors could actually blow this game wide open. I think Danny Green is the key, because if Danny Green starts hitting, that's going to make everything easier for Leonard, Marc Gasol, and everybody else. Because Danny Green, and I said it before, in the NBA playoffs in this decade, is one of the best three-point shooters there's been. And we saw it, I think it was in, Game 3, where he went off. There was nothing the Warriors could do then, because then you got him going off. You still got Leonard over there playing. And the other one that I think is really huge tonight is Siakam, because Siakam has not done anything near what he did in Game 1. If you get a big game from Siakam and Green, I think this is over and it's a double-digit win. But what I think will happen is I think that emotion will give them a lead, and then I think the Raptors will slowly track them down and win the game at the end. I would just suggest to the Raptors, with 10 seconds left, be up by 7 points.
All right. Let me ask you a question. Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant. The Warriors haven't had him. How much really of a loss was that to them when he went down?
I don't know that it was a huge loss when he went down.
Houston.
It wasn't a huge loss when he went down. It's a huge loss right now. Because the other thing is this, and I talked about this the other day. I think the biggest effect he's had is just whether he's going to play or not. I think right now they're in a better position than what they were in Games 3 and 4, because there's no more worrying about, is Kevin Durant going to play? You know what you're playing with. If you're Steve Kerr, you know what team you're playing with. You can prepare that way. You don't have to worry about the outside distraction. The outside distraction right now is all on Golden State's GM and the general manager and the team doctors, because they're the ones that are taking the heat right now, and rightfully so. So I think right now, if you're the Golden State Warriors, you're going home. You know what you've got. You know what the other team's got. You just got to go out and get it done. But there's no real distraction here anymore, I don't think. That distraction is more for the front office and maybe Steve Kerr. But as a team, I think this team knows what they have to do. I think they are confident they can do that. And I think if the Raptors don't come out ready to play, this game could be over in the second quarter. But I think the Raptors have shown they're a very mentally tough team. I just hope that Nick Nurse doesn't screw the game up like he did the other day.
All right. If Golden State wins tonight, you got Raptors in Game 7 at Toronto.
Yeah. I think eventually that this just wears them down and the Raptors win. I mean, I think tonight is a toss-up. I'm going to lean towards Toronto just because if I'm looking at the game and I'm going to bet it, I'm coming down to the fact that I don't think Looney is completely healthy. I don't think Iguodala is completely healthy. So this is going to be a team short with players, definitely healthy players. So I'm going to go with the Raptors because I really think this. And this is one thing I was completely wrong about. I thought the Raptors were a one-man team. Well, I don't think I was wrong about it because I think up until towards the end of the Philadelphia series, they did play like a one-man team that stood around and watched Leonard. But this team, for some reason, everything kind of kicked in, and they have played great basketball. And for all the people that say they couldn't have done this if Kevin Durant was playing, I'm not so sure. I'm just not. Even a healthy Durant, I think this is a 6 or 7 game series, and I think that it is disrespectful to say that. And when you look back at it, when people talk about the 83 Sixers, nobody said anything about James Worthy missing that series with the Lakers. In 1984, the Boston Celtics won the greatest NBA Finals of all time. Jamal Wilkes was actually the starter. James Worthy used to come off the bench. Jamal Wilkes averaged 18 points a game on that team. He got hurt in the Phoenix Western Conference Finals series and never returned. He was missing. You know, in 87, nobody brings up that the Celtics were beat to hell. In 89, nobody really brings up that the Lakers were beat to hell. In 91, nobody really brings up James Worthy is the reason why the Lakers beat the Bulls in Game 1. And then Worthy goes down early in Game 2, series is over. So the whole point of this is it doesn't matter who's playing and who's not. You've got to be able to win the game. So if the Raptors blow this, it would be a loss of epic proportions because every time a player the level of a Kevin Durant has went down, his team has not been able to recover. And I'll tell you this, if Steph Curry and Klay Thompson go off the next two games and they win it all, they definitely both deserve to be top 50 players of all time.
Yes.
And Lucas says, hey, Steve, go Raptors. The feud is over. So there you go.
He didn't text me on that.
It doesn't matter. He let the whole world see it on the Spreaker. So.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right.
So what's your pick tonight? Honestly. Don't just be a girl so you don't have to be wrong.
I got to go with Golden State.
Because I think you still think Golden State's going to win the series.
I do. I think somehow they're going to pull. Because I agree with you. I think that Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are two of the greatest 50 players ever play in the game of basketball.
No, I'm not saying that. I think Steph is. I don't know about Klay. What I'm saying is if they win the next two games because they both go off,
then
they
elevate themselves. Yeah,
because I don't remember Scottie Pippen going off and leading the Bulls to anything when Jordan was gone.
He didn't have to.
Yeah, he did. When Jordan was gone, he did. I'm talking about 94 and 95. You know, 94 and 95, they went to a Game 7 with the Knicks, lost a really close game where Scottie didn't do a whole hell of a lot for being one of the 50 greatest players that ever lived. If you remember, that was the one in Game 3 or 4 where Kukoc hits the long shot while Pippen is pouting and runs off the court, doesn't even celebrate that they won.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think Pippen belongs in that top 50 anyways, because I think this. When Jordan left, 94 and 95, Pippen was just a really good player. When he left the Bulls and went to the Blazers, he was just a really good player. So, Scottie Pippen was a really good player, but he's not an all-time great.
You're a coach, right? You're a coach, right?
Sure. That's what they tell me.
Yeah. So how much does coaching play into this tonight?
I think when you're to this point, if it's a close game, coaching plays into it big time. I think that coaching-wise right now in a game like this, your biggest thing is having your team mentally ready. Because if you're the Raptors, you just had an opportunity to win a world championship in front of your crowd. Now, the thing that scares me the most about the game tonight and the next game is it looked like, with 2 minutes left, that the Raptors were world champions. It was a 6-point lead. They had the ball. And then for some reason, Nick Nurse, against a team that had lost maybe their best player, and a team that is tired, he called timeout. And he called timeout. He came out, and his play was to put the ball in Kawhi Leonard, or whatever the hell he's named, in Leonard's hands, one-on-one. And that was his play. They got stopped there. He draws up a better play and they score. It's an 8-point lead. And this game is probably over. I don't know why you call a timeout when your team has the complete advantage and you're about to finish the game off. And the other thing is this. You don't have to draw a play up for Leonard to go one-on-one with anybody. He was going to do that at that point anyway. And I think Nurse screwed that game up. I think the most important thing as a coach in a game like this is you just don't mess it up.
Okay, a couple points here. One, you've got Steve Kerr, who has been in 10 NBA Finals, 3 with the Spurs or the Bulls, 2 with the Spurs, 5 as the only time that he's coached the Warriors. He's been to 10 NBA Finals. And I sat there on the bench.
We hadn't coached
and watched,
in 10. I mean, he played in.
No, but he
Bulls,
you understand. And as a player, when I got the privilege to sit next to Bob Knight, which I spent a lot of time sitting next to Bob Knight, take that for what it's worth.
I thought you were like 4 seats down, but all right. I thought you sat next to Chuck.
Yeah. I got moved 4 seats down.
You sat next to Chuck Franz. You're not lying. Come on.
Yeah, I said Chuck Franz. Yeah. Chuck Franz, not Chick Franz. You got to see coaching genius, and you got to see people that could affect the game in a short period of time in a 30-second timeout. And I saw Knight do that, and I've not seen Nick Nurse do that.
I've seen Nick Nurse do that. Nick Nurse did that at the start of Game 3 when he changed the way they ran their offense. The problem is this. Finally, in Game 5, Steve Kerr responded. Now, tonight, Nick Nurse has to respond back. So a lot of this is just not screwing it up as a coach, but he has to make some adjustment here. I mean, you've got to defend the perimeter a lot better than what they did the last game. And the Raptors are a great defensive team, so I assume that they will. They're not going to give up a bunch of open looks. I don't think they gave up a ton of open looks the last game. It's just the Golden State Warriors could shoot the ball even if you're guarding them because they've got great shooters. It's like if you're guarding Larry Bird, you could be inside of his jersey, and he's going to elevate that 3 inches and just bust that 30-footer.
Yeah, Curry's unbelievable. I mean, I've never seen a human being that can shoot a basketball like Steve Curry.
Yeah, and the problem with Curry is if you don't guard him, he'll shoot the ball from just inside a half court if he's open.
No, he will, and he'll make it.
Yeah.
It's 50-50 whether it goes in from half court or not. It's 50-50.
It might be more than that. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, you're right. It might be more than that. I don't know. I think the Warriors pull this off the next 2 games and pull this off. I just don't think the Raptors are ready yet to do this.
Well, this is their only chance to do this, probably.
I agree. Yeah.
Unless Leonard's back, and I think this. I don't think that there is absolutely no chance he goes back to Toronto because he looks like he's having fun. As long as they can pay him close to what he would make, you never know. I hope he stays in Toronto because if he does, that's great for Canadian basketball overall. And let's face it, if he goes to L.A. or New York, then he's chasing championships. If he goes to Toronto and he wins a trophy this year, and then he wins another one anytime in the next 3 or 4 years, they're going to build a statue to him in front of the arena. They're not going to build a statue in front of Boston, L.A., or New York for him, no matter what he does. Statues are already there. You know, and the other thing about Steve Kerr and all the NBA finals he's been in, remember this, Bill Russell was the coach of the Celtics, and he was terrible. And he was in more NBA finals than Steve Kerr.
Yeah. Him and Casey Jones, maybe.
Yeah, well, Casey Jones just fell in a really nice situation. And I don't think KC was a bad
Tommy
coach.
Tommy Heinsohn, and you can start going through all the
Well, I think Heinsohn, I don't think was a bad coach. I mean, just from listening to him on the TV, I know he did like the 84 finals. I think he had a general idea of what was going on in a basketball game. But it just makes you wonder if after Red Auerbach, I mean, the Celtics could have made that run last another decade up to when they got Larry Bird if they could have had a coach. Because really, they did occasionally because I think they won it all in, 74 and then 76. And then you had the 4-year dead period, and then they got Larry Bird, and they were back then. But I just think this is going to be a great game either way tonight. I think this series has been great for the NBA. I think it's been great for basketball in Canada. And Lucas Weiss thinks Eric Spoelstra is a great coach. What do you think, Steve?
Who?
Eric Spoelstra.
Who's he?
Shoo. Well, at least we're not doing a sports show because then that would be embarrassing. All right, guys, we're here on the History Channel where tonight we're talking about the history of the NBA Finals. And I don't think Lucas thinks Eric Spoelstra is a good coach. Look it up, Steve. Eric Spoelstra. Come on.
Oh, no. No, go ahead. Keep talking.
What do you mean keep talking? Tell us who Eric Spoelstra is.
I have no idea. Now I'm an idiot.
Nah. He was the basketball. Let's see. Is he still the head coach at Miami? That question's for Lucas.
Eric, Folstra. I got Eric Flotation.
Eric
Who is Eric
Flotation? How did you get Eric Flotation out of Eric Spoelstra? I think he's still the head coach.
Understand?
He's been the head coach.
Do you understand what it is to be 6'8" and have your thumbs be so big that when you have an iPhone, you can't get the numbers and everything dialed in right all the time? So you get spell check.
Do you have any idea what it's like to not have to look things up and know who somebody was? He was the guy.
Yes, I do, and that's called Mike Goodpaster.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I know that better than you know that. It's like, just ask Mike. Ask Mikey. If Mikey likes it, we'll all like it.
He was the head coach.
You're like Cheerios.
He was the head coach for the Heat when they won it all in 2012 and 2013. And I think he's still the head coach of the Heat. Yeah, Lucas said yes. So, yeah.
Yes. All right.
So I'm assuming
that's
Lucas
why I don't know him.
He actually
was not relevant.
He's relevant because he's won 2 championships, and I think he is only.
He got paid to babysit the greatest talent in the world.
And he's the first Asian American head coach to win an NBA title too.
You know why he won? Because he did nothing.
You know what he looks like to me though? Eric Spoelstra looks to me
now I know who this guy is. Now I know who he is.
If you see the picture though, doesn't he look like Punch on chips?
Yes, yeah. Eric Estrada.
Yeah.
Eric
Now
Estrada.
Lucas is trying to think of what Poncho on chips is, but Chips was a dramatic.
Who was the other? Who was John? What was John?
Who was the white dude?
John?
What was the white dude's name? Don't tell me. I can think of it. I don't know if I can or not.
John Baker.
John? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember his last name.
I think it was John Baker. But yeah.
I think it was John.
It was John Baker, I believe.
Well, the first person that could send us a message on Twitter to tell me who it is before we remember, and if Steve's not right, Steve will send you a crisp new $100 bill.
No, I won't.
It's too late. I already said you would. You can't go back on it or you'll be a bitch. Wait, Larry Wilcox.
Larry, John, okay, Ponce, Larry Wilcox, yes.
Because Larry Wilcox looked like Patrick Swayze on crack and shorter hair a little bit.
Yes, he did. Yes, that's a good call.
All right, guys.
Oh, where are we going? We're off the air.
Give me a score for tonight, Steve. Pick the score. If either one of us picks the score correctly, Lucas Weiss will send us a crisp new $100 bill.
I've got Warriors 107 to 103.
Okay. I've got Raptors 99. Golden State Warriors 93.
And you're going to win. And I hate you because you're going to win.
All right. How about this? Mike and Steve, Lucas has a question. If your team won a championship, would you stand on top of a car? Are you talking about if I was like coaching a team or Steve was winning, or are you just talking about as a fan of a team? That's what we need to know, Lucas. As a fan of a team, I wouldn't. Because I would never go out. I would never go out to celebrate with the fans that celebrate because I find that crass. It's beneath me.
Ask Lucas if he's talking about Showalter Fountain. See if he knows what Showalter Fountain is.
Is it in Toronto?
No, it's not in Toronto.
I know what Fountain.
Here's another question. Here's another question for Lucas. What's the bigger city, Toronto or Montreal? What's the bigger city?
Do you know, Steve?
I think it's Montreal, but I want to hear Lucas because Lucas is Canadian. This is his deal. What's the bigger city, Toronto or Montreal? Lucas, respond.
I think I know the answer to it, but I'll be quiet since you want Lucas. But because Montreal, I think Montreal is easily the biggest city in Canada. Because Montreal's got a population, I think, well over 100,000, and I don't think there's any other city that's even close. I think Toronto. It's not. I watched the CFL. I know it's going. That is why when they had the Olympics in Canada in 1976, it was in Montreal.
Okay, so we have the Argonauts and the Alouettes, right? We have the Argonauts and the Alouettes, right?
You know, there are teams called the Argonauts and the Alouettes, and the Argonauts draw the Argonauts draw like 8,000. No, it's not, Lucas. Lucas thinks Toronto is a bigger city than Montreal. I don't know.
He may be right now because Toronto is like.
He might be.
I watch Let's Make a Deal. I watch Let's Make a Deal every day, and they give away trips to Toronto every freaking day on Let's Make a Deal.
I'm going to look it up, but I will say I based my information off of what I was told while watching. Hold on. I got my information while watching the 1976 Grey Cup game, which said that Montreal, or 77, because it was played at Olympic Stadium between Edmonton and Montreal. It was known as the sneakers game because it was so cold and the field was so icy. They didn't wear cleats. They wore sneakers to be able to stand up. I'm looking it up. All right, damn. Toronto got big quicker. Because actually in 1996,
Toronto's bigger?
Montreal was first in 96. All the way back through 1871, they were first. And don't give me that you live there, Lucas. I watched the 1976 Grey Cup, and they said that Montreal was bigger. So, actually, Toronto became the biggest city in, 2001. Here's the amazing thing. All right, I hate to do, Toronto history. But in 1996, there was only 653,000 people living in Toronto. In 2001, 5 years later, there was 2.5 million.
Yeah.
Now, the reason that is, and the reason they're bigger than Montreal, Lucas, hold on. Toronto amalgamated with 6 surrounding municipalities in January 1st of 1998. The reason they are bigger is because they brought in more outlying cities or outlying towns to be Toronto.
Right.
So technically,
you know where they got that from? Here's where they got that from. They got that from
high school basketball.
Unigov. That was Unigov. That was Bill Hudnuts, the mayor of Indianapolis. He created Unigov, which encompassed all of the surrounding towns in Marion County, Hamilton County, Hendricks County, Hancock County, Shelby County. He created them all to become part of Indianapolis. That's how Indianapolis, Indiana got to be
that was in the late 60s, early 70s?
60s, 70s, The hood, exactly.
I've heard of that because that's really
what
when
Toronto did, right?
When they did that, though, and I wasn't joking about this, but when they did that, that was also about the same time where they started consolidating all these high schools in the state of Indiana also.
I know. And Landon talked about that last night.
So it was kind of the same thing. So I'm still going to stick by my Montreal. Toronto cheated because Montreal didn't amalgamate.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Well,
so
here was my point. My point is, you guys all bash me because the Canadian Grand Prix is where? What city is it in?
Canada. I don't know. I don't care, Steve.
Canada's a country. It's not a city.
Yeah, but nobody cares about a car race in Canada.
Did you not hear Landon? What was Landon's best story about me last night?
Oh, did you drive too fast?
Yeah.
Yeah, so?
So, go fast. Yeah.
What's that
Second
mean?
Is the first loser.
Okay, so this proves that it's not a sport because you can do it. Ha!
Touche.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up.
And Lucas, No, wait. Let me ask Lucas one last question. He can text you on this. What is the name of the racetrack where they race at in Montreal?
He's not texting me. He's sending messages through Spreaker where multiple people can spend multiple
Let's see if you can name the track.
What, the Montreal racetrack?
Uh-huh. Yeah, see if you can name it.
That's pretty easy.
What is it?
Excuse me. Huh? Well, I can't help it. I had to belch. It's named after Villeneuve.
Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah.
I know my shit, Steve.
Yes, you do, Mike, and that's why I love doing this show with you.
I cannot
get us off of here.
I cannot say what Lucas's last comment was to you, but it had something to do with 1 minute and 7 seconds in the Landon Turner interview last night. All right.
I read that. That
Are you on
good.
Spreaker now,
Lucas,
so you get to see it?
Good job, Lucas. Good job.
You need to be on Spreaker so you can see what he says. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. I will be back with Bobby Sheridan on the Sheridan Report in an hour, where we get Bobby's pick on Toronto and Golden State, because no matter what I think, I'll probably just bet what Bobby tells me to anyway, so make sure you check that out. Also, tonight, Inside Boxing Daily will be after Game 6 of the NBA Finals. And tell Steve, Showalter Fountain is in Bloomington, Indiana.
There you go. Yes,
and
it is.
Fountain Square is in Cincinnati. You can see it at the start of WKRP.
WKRP.
I can't believe you even asked that question in a text. I didn't even answer it because I thought I found it kind of offensive that you would even ask me that. I've spent half of my life at Fountain Square. But, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Make sure you check us out on all the shows I just told you about. Check out betdsi.eu, promo code TGT to bet the game tonight or to bet any Major League Baseball. Check us out on the Sheridan Report. Make sure you use the promo code TGT. All right, we're going to wrap the show up. So you can hear all of our shows, all of our podcasts on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes,
Mike, can I say one thing?
Spreaker,
Can I say one
Stitcher,
thing?
Spotify.
Can I say one
what?
thing?
It better be intelligent.
This has been absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
I've loved every minute of it. Thank you.
That's why you're here. You bring the nonsense. All right. So, for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.